Hi, my name is John Hurd, and my topic is over Yellowstone's caldera and how it could form a supervolcano. And my question is, could Yellowstone's caldera form the next supervolcano and end humanity for the United States? I'm interested in this topic because it would affect our lives directly in the United States, and even though the students in Texas don't live close to Yellowstone, it would affect us directly. Supervolcanoes erupt every 100,000 years, and the last one that erupted happened 74,000 years ago on Mount Toba. If Yellowstone were to form into a supervolcano, it would be a worldwide scale by how connected the world is today. A caldera is what leads to a supervolcano. So how does a caldera form, you ask? A caldera formed in Yellowstone when a hot spot was formed in the Earth's mantle and created constant pressure on the Earth's crust, which then led to an explosion, which emptied the magma into a caved hole which is called the caldera. The caldera is a caved-in part or large hole that the lava from the hotspot spears into. In Yellowstone's case, the caldera is approximately 35 miles wide and 50 miles long, even though the scientists suggest that it's probably bigger since the last time they measured. When the caldera collapses, it creates a supervolcano, which in return is unstoppable and extremely destructive. Now to the main part. Although the likeliness of a supervolcano is highly unlikely anytime soon, there is no doubt it will happen in the future, and when it does, what will happen? Well, it's safe to say the ones that will be greatly affected the most is the citizens of the United States. When the Yellowstone's caldera erupts and sends ash, anything within a 62-mile radius will be obliterated into ash, and the land will be unusable for agricultural purposes for decades to come. The crops nearby will also quickly turn into ash, and all the farmers will lose tons of money. How devastating the eruption will be depends on what type of season the volcano erupts. Ben Kennedy, a volcanologist at the University of Canterbury in Christian Church, New Zealand, says it would be hard to say what would exactly happen, but they can make some pretty good educated hypotheses. Like in small volcanoes, the sulfate aerosols may be smaller than a larger volcano, so they might pour out slower than a larger volcano. But the ash would most likely have the same effect. The ash would spread differently depending on the season because of weather patterns. The size of the ash that is spread from a volcanic eruption could cause a massive screen or block out the sun and cause a global temperature average to drop as low as 3 to 3.5 degrees Celsius, like in the Toba supervolcano eruption that happened 74,000 years ago. With this massive ash in the air, the sun would seem to just disappear even though it didn't. The sun rays couldn't reach through this thick layer of ash. Without the use of sun to grow crops, we wouldn't be able to feed the most of the population, which would then start a global starvation and a steep decline in population, unless there was some way we could learn how to mass-produce crops without the sun. To give you an idea of the size of eruption Yellowstone would give off, the eruption would be 50 times the size of the eruption in Indonesia in 1815, and would be 500 times the size of the eruption in the Philippines, Mount Pinito in 1991. Susanna Jenkins, a volcanologist at the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom, says that ash can crush buildings, foul water supplies, clog electronics and ground airplanes, and irritate lungs. Scientists use smaller eruptions like the recent 2010 eruption in Iceland to learn and collect data to make hypotheses on what would happen if a supervolcano, because no scientists have ever witnessed a supervolcano. So how do they know the effect of a supervolcano that happened 35 years ago, or how do they even know it happened? Well, scientists use the bottleneck theory to suggest evidence of this massive eruption. The bottleneck theory is when the population has a massive decline in numbers and almost close to extinction, which then leads to extinction or builds up back to population. The scientist Jacob Lowenstern of the U.S. Geological Survey in the Menlo Park, California, who's the scientist in charge of the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, says scientists would struggle to know when to sound the alarm of a supervolcano because the starting signs of it would start months or years before the supervolcano could ever erupt. He also said the The political aspect comes into play too. In the 1985 eruption of Nevado del Ruiz in Colombia killed 20,000 people. A portion of that is because the government ignored the scientists' warning. When a supervolcano erupts in the near future or far, it all depends on many factors, but the main ones are how close scientists can predict when the eruption is to happen and how well prepared the world will survive a supervolcano. But a more realistic look would be to assume that many of the poverty-struck people and people in the countries that are undeveloped would die from either starvation or extreme cold temperatures. My conclusion is, though there is no posed threat of a supervolcano right now at Yellowstone, scientists believe that signs will appear and they'll know months, if not years in advance. Scientists at Yellowstone Observatory say that with a massive volcano eruption, there are abrupt signs such as strong earthquake groups and the ground will quickly deform. Scientists say there are no signs at Yellowstone of a massive eruption in a supervolcano, though gas is released daily there. The scientists at Yellowstone keep a close look at their seismic and GPS networks of the YVO that show tremors, volcanic tectonic, which is earthquakes of brittle failure of rock. An example of this would be the San Andreas Fault. And finally, low-frequency earthquakes caused by cracks formed by slow-moving magma and gases, which all these describe what's happening in real time using modern digital instruments and the internet and the telephone links. Thank you for listening.